It's been a while since I recorded a video. It's been about a month. And over this last month, I've basically just been indulging in escapism and running away from my problems, which is pretty weird. But I just, that urge you get occasionally to just like distract yourself and to just push everything away. And probably if you're a relatively healthy individual, this comes in just like slight bursts where maybe something stressful happens to you and then you just maybe go binge a show over like an evening, and then you kind of carry on with your day the next day and you return to somewhat normal, or maybe you have a few days where you're a bit off. But it's kind of this subtle aching pain and habit that you have, that you're conscious of, that you just jump to distractions when life feels a bit uncomfortable. So I was pretty much experiencing this, like I think 99% of people. I was just running around and just living my life and just having these subtle discomforts that I would run away from. So over the last month, it was going really well. I was very spiritually aligned. I was sitting in silence, contemplating life, and I would get this pull towards escapism, this pull towards just distracting myself, to the urge to almost kill your own consciousness, to not be aware. And I was just kind of sick of this feeling. I got kind of overwhelmed and I got absorbed in kind of this nihilistic thoughts. I was just like, what's the point of all this meditation stuff, this spirituality stuff? The urges keep coming back. And so I decided, consciously and unconsciously, a bit of both, that I was going to commit to just seeing escapism all the way through, like experiencing all that escapism has to offer and seeing how it just doesn't work. So that's the spoiler of this video. Escapism doesn't work. And I've tried it. I tried it very, very extensively, almost scientifically, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't do what is promised when you first initially indulge in escapist behaviors. So when you're escaping, what you're doing is, what I alluded to earlier, is you're trying to numb your existence. You're trying to remove your conscious experience of something, of a negative emotion, most likely. So the reason we escape is because we get these overwhelming negative emotions or pains. Maybe it's a bodily pain or maybe it's a mental pain, and we're trying to not experience that feeling. We're just like, no, I don't want this part of reality to happen. I don't want to experience this thing. So I'm going to distract myself and I'm going to become less aware of this sensation. And so you indulge in escapism and it works at the start, but you don't actually address anything. And this is what I realized after just escaping for so long, is that you're not addressing anything. Nothing actually gets solved. It gets buried, pushed down deeper. And that act of pushing it down just actually leads to a lot of self-hatred, resentment, and anger. You don't escape anything. It's pretty much impossible to escape your feelings, these negative emotions. You just push it down, and then that bubbles up in different ways and it expresses itself in different ways. So escapism is always a temporary, I wouldn't even call it a solution. It's a temporary relief that then kind of gets pushed down and magnified and manifests in different ways in your life. So that's the first important thing to understand. It doesn't actually solve anything. And I know you might be like, okay, this is common sense. Like everybody knows escapism doesn't solve anything. But you don't really know it. Like if you really knew it, you wouldn't engage in that behavior. And this was kind of the other reason why I wanted to jump into just kind of committing to this escapist behavior, weirdly, because it's like, And I understand that there's actually nothing for me at the end of that tunnel. When we escape into these various like media, maybe it's sex, maybe it's drugs, whatever it may be, whatever your vice is, there's a subtle hope that this is going to solve your problem. Like that is why we continuously engage in it. And we never really learn from our lessons because we're keeping that hope alive that maybe if I just run away from my problems, maybe if I just quiet this feeling, it will go away forever. Like we actually subconsciously think that without realizing it, that this is going to be a permanent solution. But we never really take a step back and kind of look at how it's gone, kind of analyze the effects of our escapism very like objectively and rationally, somewhat rationally, and see how every single time we're keeping the hope alive and every single time our problems aren't actually solved. They're like pushed down, they're suppressed, they're repressed, they're numbed, but never really addressed. Another reason why escapism doesn't work is because you don't actually want to escape completely. And this is what I realized as well after just engaging in escapist behaviors. I mean, pretty much my whole life, but very much like without guilt and shame the last month. Like I wasn't too guilty about what I was doing. There was still some like resistance and resentment towards myself, but it was very, very like minimal compared to before. And this is really important. Like when you do it without shame, you realize that you don't actually want to escape. Shame is kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy. When you feel shameful about something, you feel worse about yourself. And so you want to treat yourself in a worse way. So you want to engage more in these escapist behaviors. But when you do it without shame, when you don't really vehemently judge yourself for engaging in these behaviors, you realize that you don't actually want to just escape. You don't actually want to just binge Netflix, or you don't actually want to do a bunch of drugs, go out partying every single night, or just, I don't know, whatever your vices again. But you don't really want to do these things. And the reason you don't want to do these things is because you have inherent love towards yourself. And it might be obscured by this kind of nihilistic worldviews or this fear that you have. But you genuinely, and I promise you, like I've been on both sides where it's been obscured and when it's been brought to light, but inherent to your nature, you really do want the best for yourself and for other people. It's just part of who you are as a being, as a conscious being. You want the best for yourself. And so when you kind of cut away the shame and these stigma orientated or surrounding these escapist behaviors, you realize that you don't want to do them. And if you engage long enough and if you contemplate it long enough and if you engage in the behaviors in a way which you're aware, you realize that they naturally kind of fall away. You want to actually work on things that are meaningful. You do actually want to face the challenges of life. You do want to be courageous. You want to be courageous for yourself and for those around you. And this is a very inherent feeling that will come out when you are more conscious. All of this really boils down to understanding that you're not going to find what you're looking for in escaping. And this, again, this takes like a lot of time to settle in. Like it's only just started to settle in for my life. And escapism has been like my go-to strategy for dealing with negative emotions for pretty much my whole life. And only recently, only after kind of cutting out that shame, am I really realizing I'm not going to find what I'm looking for in escaping. Like it's not there. It's not at the end of the tunnel. And if there's any insight, and again, I can't actually transfer this information to you. You have to genuinely experience it for yourself. So I would suggest like next time you're escaping, indulge in your escapism without shame and with awareness. Just see how it is. And really just try to absorb that insight. You're not going to find what you're looking for in this behavior. There is no light at the end of this tunnel. This is a dead end that you keep going down. And that's really just a fundamental insight I've had around escapism. It's a dead end. There's nothing for you like there's no way. If you take it to the final extreme, you're not going to just stop experiencing all negative emotions. It doesn't even stop you from experiencing the negative emotions you want to stop experiencing. It's not a permanent solution, and it hurts you more in the long run. And it's also something you don't really want to do. So all of these are just my insights around escapism. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, and yeah, peace and love.